Good evening. So the Crookshanks have tasked me with giving our Africa presentation. They've told me they've done this lots of times, so now it's my turn for them to see what I learned from Africa. So just a quick little layout of how we're going to do this. It's a little more informal than a normal sermon on a Sunday night. So I'll just go through all of our trip as how we went, just day by day, just a little bit, what we did, what we were able to see, and what all the lessons we did and all those such things. Then I'll ask see if anyone has any questions there at the end. Just if you have anything that wants to be asked, we'll be happy to answer it. If I don't have an answer, I bet Brother Ed will be able to help me answer that question. And then I'll give us an invitation here at the end. So the three of us, we left on August 10th of this year to go to Lilongwe, Malawi. We were there for about 18 days. The country of Malawi here is a little tiny one. I think you can see my mouse here. Let's see here. Is where we spent all of our time here in this trip. We flew into South Africa there on the 10th, and then the next day we flew up there to Malawi. So here's just a little map of the country of Malawi. We're in that little dot that says Lilongwe. That's the capital of the country. We spent most of our time within about an hour of that doing various meetings. Our meetings that we had, we did 3 different types of meetings. We did ladies' days that Miss Lena held, lots of those. We had local women also speaking at. And then we all three taught at some seminars. So our seminars were helping empower those churches, teaching them the critical issues. I taught on the 5 acts of worship, and Brother Ed, he taught about the importance of the church and the church and prophecy and such things like that. And I assume Miss Lena led closely to what we were teaching also there. So we did 6 meetings while we were there. We did 2 youth meetings for the youth. So lots of youth showed up to those meetings. Then we did 2 of our seminars, and we had 2 ladies' days held while we were there. The first day we got there Saturday. It was late at night. So our translator, Brother Isaac, he's the one translating here for Mr. Ed. I didn't have any great pictures of all of us, but that's Brother Isaac. He was our translator for this whole trip for me and Mr. Ed. So we showed up late one night. He and his daughter picked us up, and we just went and we crashed there. But this is church service Sunday morning. This was my first experience with Africa Church. They like to do things at the crack of dawn. We were at church at 7 o'clock in the morning for 7:30 worship. So bright and early, we had a local brother here at this congregation. This is Area 36, where Brother Isaac, he's one of their elders there. He's one of the elders at this congregation, and this is where they've spent lots of time in their trips to Africa. But we had our service here. There was a local brother there. He taught on the Lord's Supper that morning for our class, and one of the other elders in this church, he actually translated for us, since obviously we didn't speak the local language, which is Chichewa, is the local language there. Picked up a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a tiny bit. But so that was translated for us by one of the other elders for their class, and then Brother Ed, he preached on sin that morning, and Brother Isaac translated that for us. So that was our first experience with Africa Church. I think that was my first real experience with seeing how divided, the gender divide in this country. All the men sat on one side, even if they were married, all the women were over here. That they weren't mixed, and all the children even were also separate. They sat on some tarps down there in the front corner. I didn't have any good pictures of that. I thought I did, but I couldn't find any. But we had like 60 kids sitting on a tarp down in front, and just sitting there. They all sat there and listened. They don't act up and all that stuff, but there were 170 of us, I believe, at this service here this morning on this Sunday in this church. So we just had our service, and then Isaac here, he was kind enough, he brought us all back into his home. Isaac, he took us back to his home, and he and his wife, they prepared lunch for us. This is my first African meal. I think I have some better pictures here in a second of what it is, but this was in Isaac's home. He fed all of us. Their local cuisine is this white stuff here. This is called nsima. I learned a lot about this because they love eating it there. That's what they eat for pretty much every meal of the day. It's made out of the white corn that Mr. Mike grows. That's what they grow in that country, just the white corn. So they just make it down into cornmeal, and that's pretty much what everything they have is made out of. So they'll eat a lot of this nsima. They can cook it to more like a porridge or more like oatmeal for breakfasts, and then they make it a little thicker. The best way I come up with to describe it, it's kind of like really sticky rice, but it's just not grainy. So you just eat it with your hands. You don't eat with silverware. And you're really lucky if you can get some meat in a lot of these meals. A lot of the locals, the people there, they don't always get to eat meat. So we were here eating, those are actually pumpkin leaves and nsima, and chicken is what we ate. Lots of chicken is the meat that they have in this country. So after Isaac, he took us there, he fed us lunch. We went to visit some of their friends, Mr. Paul. We spent a lot of time at his house. I don't know how long we planned to be there, but we were there for a good 3 or 4 hours. So we had a good visit with one of their good friends down there in Africa. And then we just went home and we crashed getting ready for our week. So after our Sunday, we came to the Monday. So the Monday, it was a much slower day for us here down there. We were just doing things like getting some of our groceries that we needed. This was a lot of their shopping. It was lot more modern than I expected. We went to a mall and we walked in the grocery store, we picked out what we wanted. That's not quite what I was expecting. A lot of the times when we went further out to the villages, then that was more what you would think, little markets on the side of the road. But where we were in the capital, we just went to the mall and went grocery shopping. So it was much more modern than I expected going into this. So we just went there, we got our phones on their cell service down there, just did all those random things on Monday. And then we were getting ready for Miss Lina's first ladies meeting the next day. So there's a big cold storage place. I have some pictures of that here in a minute. So we just went and we bought a lot of meat. I think for this first meeting, we got 70 kilograms of meat. So 1 kilo is about 2.5 pounds, give or take. So lots and lots of beef we bought for this ladies meeting. And then after do what? This is pineapples and what? Oh, those were the avocados. Avocados, my bad. Yes. Yeah, they look a little different there. Lots of fresh fruit in these countries. They can grow pretty much everything in Africa. Not necessarily all in Malawi, but if you go down to South Africa, anything. Any fruit, pretty much anything. So this is one of the churches that we went to. This is where we had our first ladies meeting. So Isaac took us over here. That's just Miss Lina talking with the people, trying to figure out exactly what we're doing. This is the only church that I went to that actually had a real baptistry. And even then, as their baptistry, just some cinder blocks and some water in it. This was the only one that I saw lots of them. They had like a little tub, essentially, that's portable. And then some of them you go down to the river, I assume. But this was one of the nicest church buildings that we went to. I believe they actually had indoor plumbing in this one, which for the churches is very uncommon down there. So this is just where we had our first women's meeting, and that was the next day. So we'll have a couple more pictures of that. So after we went to do all that, we went and we got to see the Longway School of Biblical Studies. That's not anything that I had near imagined seeing down there. One of the other elders, Brother Gondway, he took us down there. His son's one of the head instructors out there. And they have a full preaching school. They had, about 18 or so students, give or take. I don't remember the exact number. But they have local men that they actually learn completely in English. And they're down there for 2 years and they get their full preaching knowledge. And it's amazing what they've got going on at that school of preaching. But after we visited the School of Preaching, we got to talk to the students just a little bit, just giving them a little, we're here and good. I'm glad to see what we're seeing here since it was so amazing. But after that, we went to Gondway's house. Gondway, he worked for the government, but he retired, and then he became the first organic farm in Malawi. So he had a huge property full of, those are papayas that man's picking there, and then bananas galore. And then this little picture right here on the right, this is a little tiny papaya tree. It's like this big. And the year before, when the Crookshanks went, they named this papaya tree Zacchaeus because it was the little papaya tree. So when we came back, we got to eat the papayas that Zacchaeus produced because there was a brand new tree when they saw him. And just he's that big and he was full of papayas. It was pretty amazing just to see that since most of them are giant. And just this little tiny tree producing all of this fruit. So he took us for a tour of his farm down there. It's very impressive what he has. He has a water well on site. He pumps it all through, and just the amount of modern day technology that he's had is going into this completely organic farm. We got the opportunity to speak to to his employees there, just discussing how great it was to see that and how amazing the work that they're doing and what they've been able to accomplish with so little. After we did that, obviously we're the pizza people, so we had to order pizza in Africa. Not quite the same as Viola Pizza, but that's beside the point, not for here. But we just had to have pizza just because we were there. And this is the cold storage. So we went back the next day, the Tuesday. We picked up all the meat. So we showed up in the morning expecting it to all be ready. We ordered it the day before. They say, come in the back. And we see the cow hanging up, and they're trying to tell us, pick out what part of the cow you want for this. So we went back, we saw the cow. It took a while, but we finally got the 70 kilos of meat that we finally got. And we took it to that church, and then Isaac just took us shopping, and then we could just continue working on our lessons. So that Tuesday was not much happened. But then we get to the Wednesday. This is our first meeting that we had. This was a ladies' meeting. So all these people in Africa, most of them do not have their own modes of transportation. They walk everywhere. But a lot of these churches, they were able to charter buses. A lot of them drive around, or they can, like a taxi in the little tiny buses, they can ride around the city and such. But the church chartered buses and trucks to bring all these women into the city for this first ladies meeting that we had. So their motto is, there's always room for one more in these little trucks, in these vans. They can always fit one more person no matter what. So me and Mr. Ed, we were just sitting out there watching all these women come in. And they were coming in by the busload. I think we had 700 and some odd at this meeting. I'll find that exact number here in just a moment. But they were just coming and coming in. So at this meeting, me and Mr. Ed just went home, and Miss Lina, she taught a couple times with our female translator, Shupi. We love Miss Shupi. And she helped Miss Lina translate, and then there were also a couple other local women. They helped with this meeting here also. There were 701 women present in this meeting here, and it went great. They fed them all lunch. This was that first church building. They were packed like sardines in that top right corner inside the building. They were packed in there shoulder to shoulder. I just stuck my head in and took that picture. And then there were just tarps all over the grounds outside. These women, they don't care what they're coming for. They're coming to hear the word of God. They don't care how their comfort is. They're just going to sit there on the ground and they're going to hear. We had a PA system set up at this meeting, so all those women outside were still be able to hear the lessons that were being presented. So the next day, this is our Thursday, our first Thursday here. This was the first time I got to teach. We woke up bright and early and we drove about an hour out of the city to the Dixon Church of Christ. This is their church building here. Lots of these little villages, they don't have anything big and fancy. This is just where we're going. And this is the little church that we had our first seminar in. So I was teaching the acts of worship, and that's what my topics were. I taught for about, I had 2 hours, but we had translators there. So we did this. Miss Lina, she actually got to teach inside the building, and me and Mr. Ed, we just got to sit out with the men sitting out there under a tree, and that's where we taught them for 4 hours total. We were sitting there. These men just sit there on the ground, and they are happy to learn everything they can. We were a little worried when we first showed up this morning because we only had 3 women present when we got there. But we had learned that all these women had come to Miss Lina's Ladies' Day the day before, and the truck broke down on their way home. These women did not get home until 4 a.m. in the morning, and they all still showed up at about 8 or 9 in the morning. They all were there by about 10. Every single one of these women. They were almost all out there, and they got stuck, and they all still came to what we were doing there. We had about 90 people in total at this meeting between men and women, but we also did, when we were collecting all the ties and scarves before we left, this was the first place we handed out a ton of them because we didn't want to go to somewhere we didn't have near enough, and this was the perfect size. So every single one of the men, we handed out ties. We even had to teach some of them how to tie them. Yeah, we had a whole lesson in tying ties there for a minute. And then Miss Lina, she handed out scarves that were collected to all these women in here also. Just they wear them in so many different ways. It's just unbelievable what they can do. But that was a very appreciated thing from all these people down there. The next day, let's see, we're on to the Friday. Yeah, we didn't do a whole lot on the Friday. That was just more some logistical things for getting home and just figuring out all that stuff. But the Saturday, that was our next thing that we did. We had to leave bright and early because we went to the village of Salima. This is one of the markets. I think I have some more pictures of the markets. But they just have these cabbages piled up, and they have goats wandering everywhere. So I was leaning over to ask Miss Lina the question, how do they stop the goats from eating the cabbage as soon as this goat was starting to sit over and eat the cabbage? So he kind of answered my question. They don't really care. So we were just driving about an hour outside the city. It was a haul to get into this place. This was our first youth meeting, so we had to stop, pick up a bunch of cabbage. They provided a meal for everyone present at the youth meetings, and I believe both of the ladies' days. It was the enzima and some meat usually. So we just stopped and get some of that and drove about an hour out of the city, and this is what we came to. This was Isaac, our translator, his home village. This is the school that they have there, and they were able to get a bunch of tents set up, so all the men and women, we started all here together. Mr. Ed, this place, I actually taught first. I taught to all the men and women here together, since again, it's a very gender-divided country, I've gathered. So I taught to all the men and women, and then we separated. So Mr. Ed, he taught to the men about sin. And Miss Lina, she just sat out there under that beautiful mango tree with Shupi, teaching all these women just sitting there on the ground. This village, it actually backs up to the lake here in Malawi, since back here in this first picture, yeah, you can see that ginormous lake going through the country of Malawi. It is huge, and it honestly kind of looks like the ocean if you're there. I sent a picture back because our translators told us, and he said, tell them you made it to the ocean, and lots of people believed me when I sent that back. And this is the women preparing the food for this youth meeting. I never got to stir the pot of enzima, but I was told that is incredibly hard work, and I would totally believe it watching these women. They just have their little fires going, so for most of the meetings we provide, or what would be there, we'd have to have our firewood, our maize, so the cornmeal, and meat and cabbage and just a few other random things, oil and things like that. So these women have these big old pots. They're in there stirring it. This stuff is thick. Those women must have arms of steel to be able to do this over and over. But they got so much of this stuff. On the right there, that's just two of the women. All the meat that we brought, they're just cutting off the excess fat, cutting into smaller pieces, making it ready for them to be able to cook. And there's just another woman. She's just going through all the rice, getting all the excess out of it so they're ready to cook it. These women, they're not cooking in style. They're sitting outside cooking. But still, it was pretty amazing, and it tasted really good. It was a lot different than anything you'll have here, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it. Pretty much everything we ate. This is the lake there. That's Shupi, our translator, in the picture I took with her. So that's the lake. Again, it looks like an ocean. There's waves, there's beaches. It really does, but it's huge. And I believe it's a freshwater lake. Isn't that what they told me? It is a huge freshwater lake. So we did that, and I believe out of this event we had here, I think we heard that it was a weekend meeting, so they went Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We only showed up for Sunday morning. We gave our lessons, and then we had to head out. We didn't have time to stay the whole weekend. But we believe out of that whole meeting, they had 26 baptisms at this one meeting in particular. And that's what we did here at this first youth meeting. Sunday, again, it was an early morning. We left to go to church. We went to Boonda Church. I didn't take a picture of that church. It was kind of out there a little bit. But we got there. I was anticipating to preach since Mr. Ed told me, you're preaching in the morning. It's your turn. Showed up and they told Ed to preach and I was doing Bible class. So we had to change real quick since I was ready to preach, and then I ended up teaching instead. So we taught and we had a great morning there. Their friend Paul that we visited with the first time, he was one of the main men at that congregation. We had about 75 there for church. I didn't take a ton of pictures at that church since it was a small group. And then we just went back Paul's for lunch. That is popcorn that they grew themselves, which I thought was really cool. They grew their own popcorn. And what's on the right, not exactly for right here, but this is the maize that they grow. So this is the white corn like Mr. Mike grows here for the cows, which they can't fathom that that's what we grow to feed the cows, since that is all that they eat down there. So this maize here, they will turn it into grain. They will, or turn it into cornmeal. They'll roast it just like you see in that picture. You can eat it pretty much anyway. So that's just what their main sources of food are down there. So we just went to visit, and then we just went back, rested, since that was a really busy weekend with those two meetings pretty much back to back. The Monday here of the next week, so we're on day 11 of our trip. We didn't do a whole lot. We were relaxing from that weekend, just getting ready and working on all of our new lessons for the next one. So day 12. This is Miss Lina's second ladies meeting that we had. This is at the church in Salima. So again, we had about an hour drive outside of the city of Lilongwe where we were staying. So she had a great meeting. I didn't have written down the attendance that they had at this, but it was a very large meeting. It was a good sized church there to begin with. But this day was the first time me and Mr. Ed kind of went out and had fun, since obviously we're not staying for the ladies' meetings. So we went, and Isaac, our translator, he took me down to this little beach behind this little hotel somewhere out in the middle of nowhere that they have wild monkeys. So we just went and we got to play with all these monkeys sitting here on the beach. We happened to have some bananas that Brother Conway, when we toured his farm, he gave us a bunch of bananas. We happened to have some in the car. So I'm like, I'm gonna go get those cars and get those bananas and feed them to these monkeys. There were probably 50 monkeys sitting down here on this little beach. And that was a lot of fun that we just got to do. I was not expecting to be able to go see monkeys just sitting there. Since we planned on trying to see a safari just to see the animals, since again, my first time in Africa, but there's a massive gas shortage in Africa and Malawi right now, or I assume it's still going on. I don't know the status of it today, but we were kind of afraid to drive too far out of the city and not be able to get back or just not be able to get gas anywhere. So we pretty much stayed within that hour of the city. But I thought it was still really, really cool to be able to see all these monkeys just sitting here on the beach. Back here to this meeting here, this is Miss Lina and Shupi giving out the lessons here at this meeting. The women's meetings, they'd usually start, we'd get there, drop her off about 9 or so in the morning, and we wouldn't get them till well after lunch. So they're teaching. I assume, pretty sure at this one you also had a few other women teaching also. It wasn't just Miss Lina at this one. But still, we got a lot done at these ladies' meetings. There were a lot of women that came to these. This is our Wednesday, so the day after her meeting. We didn't do a whole lot. We were getting ready for this meeting here. So we sat down with the elders of this congregation, and they were telling us to expect 1,500 people, 1,500, 2,000 people. Miss Lina and Mr. Ed, they were a little skeptical on the math of how they came up with how many people showed up. So we were expecting really maybe 600 people. We get there the next day, and we had 910 people show up to this event. That was the biggest crowd I've ever preached for. So I preached twice, Mr. Ed did once. And one of the times I was teaching, Miss Lina separated the girls and she taught. Here I thought it was really fun. Miss Lina, she can speak Chichewa. She won't teach in it, but she can speak. But this morning, our female translator, Shupi, her son was sick, so she wasn't able to join us. So we were kind of in a mad dash to find somebody to help translate for Miss Lina this morning. We showed up and we didn't have a translator for her. So she decided, or Mr. Ed kind of decided for her, she was going to attempt to teach, but we were able to find a few young ladies. They were able to help her. They struggled through it, she said, but they made it through it just fine. And we're really proud of those girls for being able to help try and translate for Miss Lina, just learning that. So we had a huge day here. Again, 910 people in present. We fed all these people lunch, so they brought all the food and they cooked it right outside. I never actually went over to where they were cooking at this meal, but all these people, just when we were in breaks, these young men, young women, they just want to take pictures with you because they are not used to seeing white people there. They're amazed, especially I was really encouraged by how many young people are that still want to learn how to preach. Since just as young as I am being there, they encourage me just as much as I encourage them. So we had this huge meeting here. One of the really cool things that we did was Miss Lina decided we were going to bring some English songs. A lot of the people in this country, especially the ones of this current generation, they teach English in school now, starting, I believe, 2nd grade. So most of them, by the time they get to high school, can speak decent English. Lots of the adult men can speak okay English. Lots of the women, it's kind of iffy for a lot of the women, but for the most part, English you can get by in this country. So Miss Lina decided we're going to bring 2 English songs with us and teach them to these people down there, and we're going to sing them in English. So at the first youth meeting that we did the first time, we taught them both. We took I Am Happy Today out of our songbook, and I Have Decided to Follow Jesus. So the first meeting, we actually taught both of those songs. At this one, it was so large that we were only able to do one. We were able to do I Have Decided to Follow Jesus, and it was pretty amazing how easily these people caught on to it. It was just amazing. Miss Lina taught the girls separately for originally, and we didn't have time to teach the boys since we were so many people. So we just taught our lessons, but when we put them all together after lunch, it was pretty amazing. I know somebody has some videos somewhere if you ever want to see them. So that was amazing. So Mr. Ed taught once at this event. I taught twice. And then we're also 2 local men. So the man that ran the Bible college from earlier, he spoke once. And he didn't speak with the translator, so he just spoke in Chichewa, which was, I didn't gain a lot from it, but it was still really interesting to see. And then the other teacher at that Bible college, he also spoke once, also in Chichewa. So that was this event. Amazing turnout. This one, it was the highlight of it for me. This was amazing to see. When I thought of Africa, I did not expect to go down there into a school and preach to 910 people. That was never even a consideration for me to even see something near this large. But this, I think, is what encouraged me the most out of the entire trip that we were there. So we fed all these people. That took a long time. They fed us especially well because we were the visitors. They would always separate us. It's considered rude if we wanted to go with everyone. We stay separated, so we just ate what they gave us. So at this place in particular, they actually gave us rice, which isn't super common in this country since rice is more expensive. Malawi is actually the poorest country in the world, so I learned that while we were there. So we ate a lot of the nsima, which is the locals, and that's what they eat. So after we had this meeting, that was amazing to see the 910 people there. So yeah, we taught the men and women, and Miss Lina got one lesson just with the women. So we just, after those 2 local brothers, we gave our final thoughts. That's one thing that they do here. If you're a guest preacher, if you're a guest anywhere, no matter where, they're going to have you stand up again at the end and you're going to say something, your final thoughts. No matter what, you're going to stand up and say something. Even if you're not even expecting it, you're going to, whether you want to or not. So we just gave our thoughts, and then we were able to crash for the day after this trip. So that was the largest event that we had by a little bit. So our 910 people here. This was our second seminar. So this was the last full event that we held. We held this on our last Saturday that we were there. So this was the little church of, what was this last church called one more time? I don't remember. Do you guys? I couldn't come up with the name. I didn't have it written down. Mr. Ed will come up with the name. This is actually a church that they've done a little bit of stuff with, but it's way out in the middle of nowhere, way out in a village down a long... Kaluzi, yeah. So this meeting here, we had plans to go somewhere else with this second seminar. So about 2 days prior, with the petrol shortage, we were really concerned about driving. I think it was about 2 hours out of the city for this other meeting. So we were really concerned about being able to get there and back, especially so close to the end of our trip when we all had flights to catch to get out of Africa, obviously. So 2 days prior, we decided that Isaac, he called up this church and said, can you have a meeting ready for us in 2 days? And we had an amazing turnout. So 2 days we were there. This is just a little church building. I just had to laugh. They'll build a building out of anything. They make their own bricks, so they have their own, they just make the bricks, and then they build kilns out in the middle of the open, just huge kilns. I don't remember if I had a picture of those to put in here, but they burn their bricks, build them, and then they just, for their rafters or for their trusses, they just stick a bunch of sticks together, and there they go. They have their building. Me and Mr. Ed, we taught outside here at this one again, where we taught pretty much the same lessons, just helping to encourage the church, just the acts of worship and how we're to do them, and then the church and prophecy and what the church is. So that's what we did here at this meeting. We had a very good turnout. I didn't have the number written down from this one, but we had a great turnout, especially for like a 2 or 3 day heads up. Again, it was pretty amazing what we did here. This was a mountain that we drove by a lot of times going out of the city, in and out. I just took a picture of it because I thought it was neat, but then they told me there was a little more significance. One of their religions there, I don't know exactly which one it was called, they believe that you have to climb to the top of this mountain to pray to God. That's just what they thought. The higher up you are, the closer you are to God. I just took a picture of the mountain because it looked really cool, and it's nothing like here. Since you're here, we have mountains everywhere. There, you're just looking and, oh man, there's a mountain right there, just one. So that's why I took a picture, but then they just told me that there's a little more significance, that the local people, they will climb the mountains because that's what they think they have to do to pray to God. Our final day when we were on our way home, again, we didn't get to go on our safari, but there was this quote-unquote zoo thing. It's kind of like a zoo you'd think here, but there weren't bars. The animals were pretty much just roaming wild. So we just got to see a lot of the animals that I wanted to see. So we were able to see some zebras, and we could pet the ostriches. I really wanted to pet the zebra, but the little girl that was there told me, no, they kick, and we were too close to the end of our trip to risk that one. They have crocodiles, lots of crocodiles. So those are much smaller than the alligators that I've seen, but just lots and lots of animals. They had the snakes, they had everything here in this place, and it was just really cool to see some of the African animals. This was our final church service. We were on our way. This is actually a church that they hadn't done anything with in quite a while, but this is a church that Ed and Lina planted a long time ago. I don't remember how many years ago, but we were on our way out there, and this was the first time we were driving. And I think 3 times Mr. Isaac got out of the car and said, can we get our car over this? Because it was, this one in particular was a little sketchy, tiny bridge, lots of potholes, and he just had to get out. Can I get over this, or are we going to have to detour? This one we got over. The other 2, I think we detoured, since we weren't getting over them. So this is just our commute to church, not the locals. The locals, people walk. If they're lucky if they have a bike, they're really lucky if they have a motorcycle. Not a ton of them have cars. So we went to this final church. Again, it's one that they planted. Again, I taught Bible class. Mr. Ed, he preached the lesson there. Again, really encouraging here to see all the brethren here. They come, they walk. Going to church is not just something they get up. I think I'm going to make it to worship service today. I think I'm going to do this. They commit their whole day to this. They get up in the early hours of the morning. They walk to church. They go through all of it. And they are there. They are attentive. I've never had such an audience invested in something I've done. It's really different for me teaching with a translator, but still just the amount of people there and their commitment to God is really what just, it changed a lot for me. So we went to church here. This is the Sunday, and then Isaac there, he took us back home. We ate, and Sunday was when I actually had to leave Africa, or leave here in Malawi. So they took me back to the airport. It's not, my flight wasn't until early in the morning, but it's really bad driving at night. I did it a couple times. There's so much dust, and so it's just really bad to drive at night. So they dropped me off late in the afternoon, and I stayed in the airport for a while there on that Sunday. And Ed and Lina, they left the next day. So I just left a little bit before them. But I think that pretty much wraps up what we did in Africa. We had our 6 different meetings, the 2 ladies' days, our 2 seminars, and our 2 youth days that had the best turnouts. And that's pretty much what we did in Africa. We had 26 baptisms I'm aware of out of that one event. I think there were some more out of another event that we held. I don't remember exactly the numbers. I didn't have them written in my book like I thought I did. I know Mr. Ed has all the numbers if you're really curious of the numbers. So I think that pretty much wraps up our trip to Africa, just what we did on the day-to-day. So does anybody have any questions that they'd like answered?
Was it hot and dry there? Everything just looked so dry.
Yeah, it's not necessarily hot, since where we were flip-flop the hemispheres, so their seasons are reversed from here. So honestly, it got hotter as we were there, since we were there for almost 3 weeks. But the temperature was very easy. There was no humidity, since it only rains for a couple months out of the year. I don't remember exactly what the months were, but not an ounce of rain while we were there. But the temperatures were very nice, and I really liked it, since we missed the August heat in Tennessee this year. Anything else?
Did you baptize anyone?
We didn't actually get to, since a lot of the baptisms at that one event that we had so many at, lots of them happened later in the night, and just while we weren't there, since again, they had a lot of local people teaching and stuff, so we weren't going to interrupt anything to stop. So we just, obviously there's not as much we can gain from the local people teaching, and they're not going to translate just for us. So we pretty much just did our part, and then we headed on.
Did you meet some people, make friends, actually conversate with?
Oh yeah, there were lots of people. Again, lots of the men especially can speak English, so obviously they're dear friends we spent a lot of time with. Really great to meet them. They had one of the men that used to work for them. He would bike from a long ways away and come and sit with us for about an hour at a time at the little place that we were staying. He and his family were the sweetest people. I love sitting to talk with them. Again, their friend Paul that we went to visit with several times, and Isaac and Shupi, I love them all to death. They were amazing, and they still text me all the time.
Were you glad to eat? Were you glad to eat like civilized food? Or?
Again, some of the food that we had too wasn't necessarily the Nsima and stuff. The Chinese people are coming a lot into this country, and they're making malls. So like where we went shopping, we could go to the chicken restaurant next door. There were a few fast food restaurants, not near anything like you have here. It's still much healthier. They like grilled chicken. They don't deep fry stuff like we do. But yes, I was really glad, since I actually went to London after this, so I was really glad to get back to regular food, but I still really enjoyed what we had down there.
Do you plan to go back?
I told them if they go back, I would love to go with them. I don't know if I would make that trip by myself yet, but if the opportunity arose, I definitely would go back. I'd take Abby with me. She wanted to go. We need an extra woman teacher.
Thomas, was it a small airport? You kept saying going back to the airport.
Yeah, it was a relatively small airport. It doesn't have like terminals like we would think here. They just have the tarmac and like 3 or 4 planes sitting out there at a time, but it was a decent sized airport. No like restaurants or anything, but they had a couple little tiny stores and stuff, but nothing like you'd see here.
Pretty safe there?
For the most part, I never felt unsafe. We never went out after night, after it got dark. Pretty much all the places, or all the good sized houses and stuff, they will have a gate with a fence around the entire property. They were told, or I was told, that there's a lot of theft in that country. Nothing that I saw ever really made me uncomfortable, but again, we just stayed in at night. So I never felt like it was too unsafe just out and about in the day, but again, just don't go out at night, really is what I was kind of told. Anything else?
Did you have a good bed to sleep on?
Oh yeah, we had great accommodations. It was actually, I believe they were Baptist missionary housing, so there's an American woman that owned this property here for missionaries to come in and out of the country. So we actually had really nice accommodations. We had indoor plumbing, which was a great thing. Lots of the places we went still had indoor plumbing, but not all of them for sure.
What's the main religion there?
What was the main religion? There's lots of them like there are here. Catholic.
And Presbyterian.
Yeah, Catholic and Presbyterian. Where we were staying, there were some mosques not too far down the road, so they do all their loud noises. I don't know exactly how it works, but in the early hours of the morning. So we heard that a lot of the time since we weren't too far, since it was kind of loud. But yeah, there's a lot of religion there, but there is a vast number of Christianity. In the capital where we were, I still think that they told me there were between 20 and 30 churches there. Yes.
Well, like, are there any like indigenous religions there? I mean, are people any type of African religion, or mostly just stuff brought in?
That's a Mr. Ed question. I saw a little bit of stuff.
Yeah, as far as African religion goes, it has more to do with the superstitions and things. It wouldn't be like what we call a church service or something like that, but they believe in the spirits and things like that very, very much. And most everything they do revolves around some kind of a spirit. That's why they do certain things in certain ways.
Yeah, there was there were people dressed up. I don't remember exactly what the word was, but people believed that they were the spirits trying to hustle money out of people. So there's a lot of spirit stuff there. Yeah, Mr. Tommy.
I see the dirt bike there on that picture. Was that a lot of the transportation? Was that the automobiles, a lot of them?
There's a vast growing number of automobiles. They were surprised, obviously they've been there so much. They were very impressed with how many more there have been since the last times that they've been there. But yeah, there's a lot of motorcycles. They're lucky people to have motorcycles, since it's, yeah, but yeah, there's quite a lot of them. There's a lot of bikes.
Is that you over there?
No, I didn't get to ride the motorcycles. Shupi, our female translator, she got to ride on the back of them once, and boy, was she excited.
When you were speaking,
members of the Lord's church, or were you speaking more to people that were not of the Lord's church?
For the most part, it seemed like they were members of the church, not necessarily all of them, but the majority, since obviously our seminars were aimed at the church in general. I think the youth meetings, there were probably a lot more that were not, but even the ladies' days, yeah, for the most part, they were members of the church, to my knowledge.
Thing is, we had many congregations come to one place. You might have 24 congregations within that area, and they come to that one place where we do the teaching.
Again, Mr. Ed has the list, since we actually have the list of how many congregations were represented at each meeting, just like Mr. Bill does here. So each of our meetings, he has the count of how many people were there, exactly how many churches and things like that. So they were very well represented from everywhere. Anything else this evening? Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me or Lena or Ed. We'd be happy to answer them.
It's the houses that's in the background.
That's more of like out in the village. Where we were in the city, since we were in the capital of the country, they weren't obviously like American houses, but they were very much modern-ish. They were very nice for the place. These were more just clay shacks with lots of them have metal on the roof. Not quite as many of them has the straw and the haze you think is what you would think of when you think of an African village. They pretty much just look like rectangle boxes with a roof on top of them, as a lot of these in the village houses.
What do you say, was there locks on the doors?
Yes, yes. Anything else this evening? If not, I'll go ahead and move on to the extending of our invitation tonight. I'll just keep it short since I'm kind of over our time. But just as we were here in Africa, we try to explain everything as simple as it can be. But God's word is not a hard thing to understand. So many of these people in Africa, they don't have our education system that we have here. They understand the basic of Christ. They understand that we must hear the word of God, that we have to believe it. They can understand that we must be baptized for the remission of our sins and that we have to remain faithful. They understand these simple things. That is all that we taught. We taught the basics. We don't have to dive deep into all these theoretical things that are happening. Just as all these people can understand it, all these simple steps, must we all be able to learn. All of us can understand this. So if you have any need of the congregation, if you need to repent of your sins, if you need to be baptized, understand these things, you can come as together we stand and sing.